And man, if you know me, you know me, man. You know I don't give a fuck about this internet shit, all this clout shit. I don't care for that. You feel what I'm saying? I ain't even say nothing crazy to you, bro. I ain't saying you green. I ain't saying you. I ain't none of that. You my dog. I love you. I just want to buy the contract. You avoiding everything else but that contract. You talking about everything but that contract, bro. We not beefing, brother. World know that, bro. You my brother, bro. It ain't that deep. We can link up and fight if that was the case. It ain't that deep. We ain't got no problem with each other, bro. You tripping, bro. I just want to get out my contract. What we doing? You don't fuck with a nigga, you ain't cool with a nigga. We ain't talking, it ain't nothing, you know what I'm saying? Most definitely, let me buy the contract. So what we doing? Fuck all that other shit that's relevant. Most definitely.
Second victim has a shell wound to the back of the head. 2 level 1 trauma is going to Broward.
We have Sunrise Boulevard completely shut down westbound. They're walking the ramp, looking for evidence on this roadway right now, possibly bullet casings.
2021. Liberia Sig's phone communicated with Denzel Sanon via Telegram, indicating Kodak Black had offered the Grand Mafia $20,000 for the murder of Wisdom Williams. Let me read this again.
That right there is a real prosecutor reading from real court paperwork that a famous rapper allegedly put up $20,000 to have his own close friend killed because that friend was making noise about leaving the label. And this is just the beginning of how deep this thing goes. To understand what happened, you need to know where everybody came from and how they all ended up in the same circle. Because this story did not start with somebody posting on Instagram. It started years earlier, inside a Florida prison, where 3 men from the same neighborhood formed a bond that would eventually fall apart in the worst possible way.
Oh God, man. You know what's going on, man.
My dog play that shit, you know?
You know what's going on, man. Stop playing, man. One word, Jazz, out of here, man. One phone call, that's all. We like the slip and fall commercial, man. You heard me? I said I'm gonna hit you as soon as I leave this.
Let's start with 26 CJ. His real name was Javion Ross, and he was born on May 20th, 2000 in Pompano Beach, Broward County, Florida. Pompano Beach is not a wealthy place. It is a city where a lot of young people grow up fast because they have no choice, and not environment shaped everything about who Javion became. He had a close relationship with his mother who supported his music from the beginning, and by 6th grade, he was already making beats and figuring out the craft. The streets were always nearby though, and at some point in his teenage years, they caught up with him. He caught a case and ended up serving prison time somewhere between 2016 and 2020, when he would have been between 16 and 20 years old. The exact charge was never made public, but that stretch behind bars turned out to be one of the most important things that ever happened to him because of who he met while he was there. He came home to Pompano around 2020 with 3 children, a drive to make it music, and connections to 2 people who were already moving in the South Florida rap world. One of those people was a rapper named Whiz the Wizard, whose real name was Wisdom Williams. The other was Kodak Black. Now, Kodak Black needs no long introduction to most people watching this, but for those who do not now, here's the foundation. Born Deucin Octave, raised in the Golden Acres housing projects in Pompano Beach, Florida, Kodak went from eating off the floor of one of the poorest areas in Broward County to becoming one of the biggest rappers in the country. When Drake posted a video of himself dancing to one of Kodak's songs back in 2015, it set off a run that led to a #1 album on the Billboard 200, multiple songs going platinum, and collaborations with artists like Travis Scott and Kendrick Lamar. Along the way, he also built his own label and crew called Sniper Gang, sometimes called KTB, and that crew became home to a number of South Florida rappers who came up around the same scene, the same streets, and the same world Kodak had come from. This clip is what the crew looked like when things were good. Kodak, Whiz the Wizard, Wham, Spin the Bin, Psycho Bob, all of them together, All of them. 26 CJ came home from prison with those connections already in place. He stepped right into that same circle. Kodak even put it in writing on Facebook, saying that 26 CJ had been his guy before anyone else was around. So you have a young rapper from Pompano Beach, same city, same background, with a public cosign from Kodak Black himself and ties to the whole sniper gang circle.
Time to test a few scraps, duffel bag, put that on your head. Ain't trying to brag, but I got lots of bread. Yeah, duffel bag, put that on your head. Ain't trying to brag, but I got lots of.
On paper, that is everything you could want coming out of prison with music on your mind. But the crew that 26 CJ walked into was already quietly fracturing, and the first sign of real trouble came from Whiz the Wizard, not from 26 CJ at all. Whiz the Wizard had been one of Kodak's closest people for years. They grew up together, they rapped together, they were genuinely like brothers based on everything both of them said publicly. But at some point around 2020 and 2021, something went wrong between them over Wiz's contract with Sniper Gang. Whiz felt like the deal he had signed was not fair and he wanted to buy himself out and move on. He made clear in audio that circulated online that he was not trying to make it a war, that he loved Kodak and just wanted to handle it as business. That is a man who was not looking for a fight. He was just trying to walk away from a business arrangement that wasn't working for him anymore. Whiz said he believed people around Kodak had been putting things in Kodak's ear, turning him against people Kodak actually cared about, and that he wished they could fix it. They never got the chance. In September of 2021, Wisdom Williams was found dead. His body was dumped in the front yard of an empty house in Hallandale Beach. He had been shot multiple times and moved from wherever he was actually killed to be left there in the open. The car that was used to transport his body was found burned in a parking lot nearby. For everyone in the South Florida rap scene, this was a message, and almost immediately the streets started pointing fingers, and one of those fingers pointed straight at 26 CJ.
Discovery in Hallandale Beach, where a body was found this morning. Investigators suspect foul play. Local 10's Ian Margle is live with details on this. Ian.
Yeah, police cleared this scene about an hour and a half ago at this point. This is the home where that man was found, but there are still a lot of questions left to be answered here. Namely, why did this happen and where was this man? Make their way into a crime scene after a man was found on a sidewalk Friday.
Investigation continues. There's going to be detectives reaching out to the family, friends, trying to get some more information.
According to Hallandale Beach Police, a neighbor found the body around 6 a.m. in front of this home on Northwest 6th Terrace and 9th Court. It's unclear at this point if the man was actually there or if his body was dumped, but police say he did grow up in the area. Although law enforcement hasn't confirmed who he is, the victim has been identified on social media as rapper Whiz the Wizard. And as people gathered at the scene, some pushed their way under the crime scene tape.
When you suspect that it might be a family member of yours or a loved one, you would want to try to confirm that for yourself. It wasn't anything malicious or ill will. It was just trying to get their own confirmation.
Now, investigators are working to figure out who did this and why.
We're making a plea to the public at this time that if anyone has any information that could help us assist with a suspect, then that would be greatly appreciated.
So this is still very early stages of this investigation. Whiz the Wizard, his real name, Wisdom Williams, and the police did tell us that the victim grew up in this neighborhood. He hasn't lived here in a bit, but did grow up here when he was younger. As soon as we get any updates on this case, of course, we will let you know. For now, we are live in Hallandale Beach. I'm Ian Margle, Local 10 News.
The accusation going around Broward was that 26 CJ had taken money from a rival crew to help set Whiz up, that he had betrayed someone who'd done time with for a bag. There was no official evidence for any of that. No police report named him, no charges were filed against him in connection with Whiz's death. But the streets in Broward County don't always wait for a court to make up their mind, and 26 CJ was already being looked at sideways by the time he put out his debut mixtape in August of 2022. The project was called King Cobra. He named it after a snake, and one of the songs on it was a collaboration with a rapper named HMT Trey, whose real name is Trayvon Key, one of the main names the streets had already attached to Whiz the Wizard's murder. Less than a year after Whiz got killed, 26CJ put his alleged killer on a record, named the project after a snake, and dropped it into a scene that was already watching him closely. Whether that was a mistake or something else entirely, it didn't help him. By late 2022 and into early 2023, 26CJ was making it harder and harder to ignore that something was wrong between him and the sniper gang circle. He had been posting little indirect shots here and there, talking about how artists weren't getting paid what they were promised, how people at the top of the crew were more focused on their image online than on actually coming through for the people beneath them in real life. He had also started distancing himself publicly, posting that he wasn't really tied in with anybody, that his own spending and his own movement were independent. These weren't big, loud callouts yet, more like the kind of smoke you see before a fire starts. But in Broward County, everyone in that scene was already paying close attention to him after the King Cobra mixtape and the HMT Trey collaboration. People had opinions about 26CJ, and those opinions were not all friendly. Then, in March of 2023, about 3 weeks before he was killed, he stopped being indirect altogether and went fully public with everything he had been sitting on. I've been real quiet about this FN because I thought we was going to keep it gangsta, but I see y'all don't respect real no more. Y'all respect the internet. So after I drop this interview, expect a whole lot of exposing and disrespect coming out of me and my music and on every social media platform. We ain't tied in with nobody. Don't nobody do more spending than us. Anybody say my name, I'ma come see you. That's on my soul. He was 22 years old, sitting in Broward County with beef against one of the most connected crews in South Florida rap, and he was on Instagram telling the whole internet that he was about to expose people on every platform he had. He wasn't whispering or playing around.
You heard me, fuck nigga. You heard me. I said I'm 10 for 10 with this shit, nigga. Tell them fuck niggas get up with me, huh? Yeah, nigga know how we coming like Tracy, whole lot of diamonds, whole lot of shine. I can see his heart beating through his chest. These niggas pussy, they don't really want no smoke. Pop out with fire.
The part that really got people talking was when he posted about what it means to get shot and not do anything about it. He wrote that if you ever got shot and the person who shot you is still walking around free without a scratch, then you were too soft to be worth taking seriously. That line was connected almost immediately in the rap community to an incident involving Kodak Black in 2022, when Kodak was reportedly shot in the leg after a party and then went on Instagram Live saying he did not even feel it, like it was nothing. He also tagged Psycho Bob, another sniper gang artist who had been going through his own legal troubles, in one of the posts. He wrote, "First Psycho Bob, now me. You still want him? Let's not get too messy." A day later, he followed up saying he had spoken to Psycho Bob and that Psycho would be home soon. He was pulling more names into the situation and making it bigger with every post. On one of the Instagram Live sessions that got recorded and spread around the internet, he went into even more detail. He said Kodak was not actually paying the artists and his crew the money he promised them. He brought up jewelry being taken from people in the sniper gang circle. He called Kodak the biggest internet person he had ever seen in his life, meaning someone who was all talk and image online, but not really about it in real life. And then he said something that a lot of people who watched it found hard to believe. He told anyone who wanted to come find him that night to just send him a message and he would come to them. He was 22 years old, putting out an open invitation on the internet in a situation where two sides of a very serious street conflict were already watching his every move. Now this is where the story connects back to Whiz the Wizard in a way that makes everything feel even heavier, because 26CJ was not the first person in that crew to publicly fall out with Kodak over money and then end up dead. Whiz had gone through almost the exact same thing just 18 months earlier. Same crew, same type of dispute, same neighborhood, same outcome. And when Kodak posted on Twitter after Whiz's death talking about grief and missing his brother, his own family called him out on it publicly.
Tell y'all niggas something, man. Y'all new generation ass niggas, man. You cannot go around sacrificing your whole team. The next thing you know, when you lonely, you go around and Twitter about the shit like you going through postpartum depression, nigga. Shut the fuck up. You know what you were signing into, nigga.
All right. And how you met Kodak?
I met Kodak in the juvenile detention center a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, explain how you met him. Like, how all happened?
I was...
Cellies?
Yeah, you can say that. I was in the older mod, but I fought a nigga, you know what I'm saying? I got off on a nigga, and they moved me to, like, the mod where Kodak and my dog Moompa and Blood them was on, you feel what I'm saying? And I got over there, you feel what I'm saying? All them was in the room together. You know, facing the tent, so you know, I tell the start out the gate, staff out the gate. I tell the staff, I'm like, I gotta go in there. You feel me? But my people them in there, you feel me?
Yeah.
I go in there, the Moompa, Lil Blood, Lil Kodak, and Lil CJ from Pompano. We linked from right there, shit. It been all love ever since.
Okay, and this was way before.
That was G1 Da Don, Kodak's own cousin, on video saying out loud that you cannot sacrifice your whole team and then act like you were grieving on the internet. He said you knew what you were signing into. That clip got everywhere fast, because when your own family is saying something like that on camera, people take notice. So by March of 2023, you had 26CJ posting threats and exposing content about Sniper Gang on social media, a clear pattern in the crew of artists dying after falling out over money. Kodak's own cousin on record suggesting Kodak had played a role in those deaths, and street rumors already going around Broward that 26CJ himself may have had something to do with Wiz's killing back when he was still on Kodak's side. The pressure coming from every direction was building towards something, and the fact that nobody stepped in to cool things down, not from Kodak's side, not from 26CJ's side, not from anyone in between, tells you everything you need to know about where things stood in that world at that moment. On March 28, 2023, 22-year-old Javion Ross was shot and set on fire inside his own car in Pompano Beach, Florida. He never got to drop that interview he was promising. The morning 26CJ was killed started like any other early Tuesday in that Pompano Beach neighborhood, and then the gunshots came. A Spanish-speaking neighbor who asked not to be identified told reporters at 6:10 in the morning he heard one gunshot, then about 40 seconds later he heard a second one, and when he went outside he saw smoke and then saw the car on fire. Another resident, a man named Eric Sharp, heard shot after shot and called the police straight away without going outside. A third neighbor named William Matillis heard something that sounded like an explosion and started recording on his phone before he even fully understood what was going on. What all of them were looking at was a 2022 Mercedes-Benz SUV, 26CJ's car, completely covered in flames on the 200 block of Northwest 32nd Court in Pompano Beach. The fire was burning so hard it had already caught a nearby dumpster as well. Pompano Beach Fire Rescue responded to a 911 call around 6:30 that morning and got the fire under control. When firefighters moved in to check what was left of the vehicle, they found a body in the back seat. The body was so badly burned that investigators couldn't determine the person's gender from looking at them. It took forensic work and tracing the vehicle's ownership to confirm that it was Javion Ross. He had been shot first and then set on fire inside his own car. He was 22 years old. A red gas can was sitting on the ground right next to what was left of the vehicle. Whoever did this brought fuel with them. This was not a fight that got out of hand. It was planned from the beginning, and burning the body was part of the plan, done specifically to get rid of evidence and to make a statement at the same time.
First at 5:30, a car on fire, then a grim discovery when those flames were put out that is now sparking suspicion. Good evening, everybody. A body was found inside the car.
That's right, and it may have been more than just the flames that took a life. Vanessa Medina is live in Pompano Beach to explain. Vanessa.
Well, there were lots of things in this crime scene that are quite suspicious, including a gas can being found right next to the car, and neighbors here saying they heard gunshots just before it was lit on fire. Cell phone video shows a car on fire in Pompano Beach. But once the fire was out, it would lead to a gruesome discovery.
Como eso de las 6:30 oí una explosión.
Around 6:30 in the morning, William Matias heard an explosion. This man who doesn't want to be identified says it started with shots. Around 6:10, he says he heard shots. Then 30 seconds later, heard more shots and saw someone running away. A gas can could be seen near the car. All I saw were flames, says Anthony Garrido, who lives nearby.
When firefighters arrived, they found a fully involved car. It's an SUV that was fully involved in flames. So firefighters fought the blaze, put out the fire, and inside that car, they found a body in the back seat. The body so badly burned, investigators are unsure if it's a man or a woman. So the state fire marshal has been called in to help with this investigation. They'll obviously try to look at the car to see if they can determine who owns the car, but that'll all be part of their investigation to see if they can get and find next of kin immediately and get to the bottom of what and who maybe even caused this.
Was that miedo?
It's scary, Williams says, because you don't know what happened. Maybe there's a murder, and that fear is what made me go back inside of my house. This, as investigators have the daunting task of trying to figure out what happened and who could be responsible. So this car, which is still back there, was so badly charred. There's no identification on it. So police are hoping that something leads them to the identity of the person inside so that next of kin could be notified. However, they're still asking for anyone's help out there. If you saw something, they're asking you to call police. Reporting live in Pompano Beach this evening, Vanessa Medina, 7 News.
The Broward Sheriff's Office Homicide Unit took over the investigation, working with crime scene investigators and the Florida State Fire Marshal's Office, which was brought in because of the arson. The official cause of death was confirmed as gunshot wounds, with the fire set after. Cell phone videos of the Mercedes burning had already gone viral on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter within hours of the incident. The whole rap internet was watching, and everyone already had a theory about what had happened and why. The Broward County Crime Stoppers line was announced publicly with a reward of up to $5,000 for information, and then nothing. No arrests, no named suspects, no updates from law enforcement. As of 2026, 26CJ's murder remains officially unsolved. But here's where the story takes a turn that nobody in the general public was ready for. In November of 2024, more than a year after 26CJ's death, the Broward State Attorney's Office unsealed an 8-person gang indictment against a crew called the Dania Hot Boys, also known as the Grand Mafia. 33 charges total, covering 8 murders and 12 attempted murders across Broward County.
A crime crackdown taking down a violent gang of suspected killers. Now a list of cases are heating up again. Vanessa Medina is live in Fort Lauderdale with the details for us. Vanessa.
That's right, some of them dating back to 2021. What happened was, according to police, a case in January blew open the whole thing, and now 8 suspected are behind bars. A violent gang, police say, off the streets and in jail. 5 going before a judge Wednesday facing a 33-count indictment, which closes 8 cases and 12 attempted cases in Broward County. The investigation began back in January after 17-year-old Terrence Farrington was shot and killed at a Plantation Best Buy.
They was buying ring cameras. Terrence came out, Terrence fell and died right there.
And all 4 people were shot, including 2 customers. The star football player was killed. Police now say Sigmund Brown, Kavaris Johnson, and Gerard Charles are responsible for the teens.
Terrence was a student full of life and love, and he was one of the star players on my 7-on-7 football team.
A print lifted at the scene led BSO's gang task force to one of the gang members, and that blew open this investigation. 10 months later, 8 now arrested, confiscated, along with stolen credit cards, gift cards, and ammunition. The state attorney's office now breaking down each case and charges against each suspect. Trayvon Key and Kavaris Johnson charged with the of rapper Whiz the Wizard, or Wisdom Johnson, back in September of 2021. Johnson is also accused in the of Antoine Dobard. He was at a laundromat in Pembroke Park, April 9th, 2023.
I see these 4 guys with black hoodies, and I looked and they started just unloading. They just start firing.
Johnson is also accused of Vernaldo Donner and Terry McKenzie, both and while driving on I-95 in Fort Lauderdale, May of last year.
Second victim has a shot wound to the back of the head. 2 level 1 trauma is going to Broward.
We have Sunrise Boulevard completely shut down westbound. They're walking the ramp, looking for evidence on this roadway right now, possibly bullet casings.
Kavaris Johnson and Raja Rowe facing yet another charge, this one a week after Terrence Harrington was killed, this time.
Call my boyfriend.
Johnny Henderson and killed while driving in Miramar.
We just heard pow, 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 pow.
It was like a semi-automatic. So it was like 4 times or 5 times.
All 8 facing serious charges that could land them in jail for life and or the death penalty. So of the 8, 1 is a minor. He also went before a judge today. The 5 going before that judge today pleading not guilty. The other 3 going before a judge Friday. Reporting live in Fort Lauderdale, Vanessa Medina, 7 News.
The first murder charge in the entire indictment was filed with Trayvon Key, also known as HMT Trey, for the killing of Wisdom Williams, Whiz the Wizard, the same man 26CJ had locked in with in prison. The same man 26CJ had put on a mixtape track less than a year after that man was killed.
Right now, HMT Trey is in jail. You feel me? HMT Trey is still locked up for, they basically saying the murder of Whiz the Wizard and Psycho's mom, shit like that. You feel me? He's in Rico. He's in a Rico right now, and yeah, and you got a couple motherfuckers in Broward. They out there speaking out on that shit, like, man, like that shit flawed. That shit flawed. Like he ain't really had nothing to do with that shit.
HMT Trey and his co-defendant, Kavaris Johnson, were charged with first-degree murder for Wiz's death, while a third man named Sigmund Brown, also known as Liberia Sig, was charged as an accessory after the fact, meaning he helped cover things up after the killing. The state is pursuing the death penalty if any of them are convicted on a murder charge. Now, that alone would have been a big enough story, but buried inside the court documents, specifically inside a motion filed by Liberia Sig's defense lawyer, there's a reference to a message that sent the whole internet into overdrive. The message was sent on August 3, 2021, about 6 weeks after Whiz the Wizard was killed. According to that court filing, based on a telegram message found on Liberia Sig's phone, Kodak Black had allegedly offered $20,000 to the Grand Mafia to murder Wisdom Williams. To be completely clear about what this is and what it isn't, this is an allegation that appears inside a defense motion, meaning it was raised by Liberia Sig's own lawyer, who was actually using it to argue that even if it were true, it wouldn't prove that Sig personally received money or participated in the murder itself. Kodak has not been charged, named as a suspect, or indicted in connection with Whiz the Wizard's death. This is not a proven fact. It's an unproven claim found inside official court paperwork, sitting on the actual Broward County Clerk of Court's website, that someone paid to have his own close friend killed because that friend wanted out of a contract. And here's why that distinction actually matters even more when you put it in context. If law enforcement decides to open a formal investigation based on that text, offering money for a killing is still a conspiracy to commit murder, even if the money was never actually paid. That thread hasn't been publicly pulled yet, but it's sitting there in the record. What we're left with then is this: 2 men from the same prison network, both affiliated with Sniper Gang, both of whom fell out with Kodak publicly over money and loyalty, and both of whom ended up murdered in Broward County within 18 months of each other in strikingly similar ways. Whiz was shot, moved, and dumped. 26CJ was shot and burned inside his own car. Both killings happened at dawn. Both cases involved fire being used to destroy evidence. One case now has formal charges against named members of a Broward gang. The other is still officially unsolved. And somewhere in between those 2 cases is a $20,000 number sitting inside a court document that nobody in law enforcement has publicly addressed. Do you think Kodak is involved in both deaths? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you think. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos